Were you always going to be brought in to put over the other guys, or were you told, well, if you catch on, there's up mobility and that kind of thing, or did you always know that was going to be your role?
Well, you know what? What was so amazing for me is as a young kid, 10 years old, I turn on a television, James, outside of Charlotte, North Carolina. As a young man, I see Wahoo McDaniels and Paul Jones against Ole and Gene Anderson. First time I ever saw professional wrestling. And I was hooked. I didn't know anything about it. I just saw these big monsters, beating each other up on television. And then later I found out that you could go to the matches, which sounds so goofy now, but are you kidding? So I would cut grass. I would do anything I could to buy that ticket. James, the first wrestling match I went into with my ticket in my hand, I think I slept with it. Okay. I go in and the old man at the turntable tries to take my ticket and I wouldn't give it to him. I didn't know he was going to tear it and give it back, like a goofball. So I argued with this old man for like 30 minutes. You're not taking my wrestling ticket. I got to get in. And that's when I first fell in love with Wahoo and Paul Jones. So to be able to walk in Jim Crockett's office and supposed to be there was just like full circle for me. To get to know Wahoo McDaniels and Paul Jones. And of course, Paul was always my favorite. And he was a manager towards the end. And I never really got to wrestle him, but I would be in the ring with his guy, like Abdullah the Butcher or Barbarian. And James, I would always tell the guy, throw me outside so Paul Jones can punch me. Paul Jones used to get tired of punching me, but I remember as a kid, that punch he would throw. And so I said, I'm going to take it. So Paul used to run from me, because I tell Abdullah to throw me out. So to go in and every Tuesday to get a check for doing something that I've always wanted to do my whole life. I ain't saying it was easy, but I always did the opposite of what a lot of wrestlers did to get in trouble. I mean, you just basically sit there and shut up. You hear it now and that people laugh at you, but I just did what I was told. And one reason everybody says, they still say it, James, you never made it big. And James, I think I bought 5 houses, and I'm not bragging, but I bought 5 houses losing. Nobody understands that. I've raised 5 beautiful kids losing. So one reason I never really left, James, I was making so much money just losing on TV. And then JJ would say, well, we're doing TV in Atlanta. Can you come to Gainesville, Georgia that night? Yes, sir, I sure can. So I started picking up these bookings. And this is when like Charlotte was fixing to take off. Rock and Roll, Midnight, oh my goodness, Road Warriors. So I literally, and it ain't all about money to me, but I was making, Ole Anderson said one time, James, they said, why didn't you and Gene travel a lot? And Ole said, we didn't have to. And I always loved that answer, and that's kind of me. I was sleeping in my own bed. A lot of fans may remember, James, and please shut me up before I get going, but Crockett bought Kansas City. Okay. Bob Geigel's going to sell it and Dusty needs a crew. James, I just bought a house. And I walk in Dusty's office and I said, Dusty, I heard you're going to send me to Kansas City. I said, I just bought a house. James, he looked at me and he said, I hope it's got wheels on it. I said, dang, you're not even going to hug me? But so a week later, me and Rocky King packed everything I owned. I was married, of course, had little George, my first son was 1 year old, left all of them at home. And we went to Kansas City. And you want to talk about starving. I hear these young green wrestlers talk about times are tough. We get to Kansas City and I want to meet Bob Geigel, the NWA president. I can't wait. They give me the address. James, I wish I had a camera back then. I drive down this old, alley. And I look at the address and say, this can't be right. This is just an old abandoned apartment building. I go up, knock on the door, and Bob Geigel opens it. the president of the NWA. And that's where they had the office. It was like in an apartment. They were VHS tapes in the kitchen sink and TV sheets all over the place. But I stayed out there for a year and a half, and I never came home. And I'm going to tell you, I learned. That's why I appreciate everything in wrestling, because out there was no money. The territory was dead before we got there. One thing that I didn't agree with is, Rufus R. Jones was the top guy out there. Everybody loved Rufus. And the first week out there, whoever's decision, they had Big Bubba Rogers beat Rufus R. Jones right in the middle of the ring. And I knew then we're in trouble. And it got so bad. I was sending, that's why you can drop me off in an island right now, James, and I'll survive, buddy, after spending time in Kansas City. You know what's funny? We get to Kansas City and we find the cheapest roach motel that you could ever find, me and Rocky King. And we're starving. And I remember all the top guys, everybody that went with us bought houses because we're going to get rich. A month later, James, everybody's living at the Roach Motel with us. I remember the first night in Kansas City that we have a big welcome, Jim Crockett, the Kansas City party. So we go to one of the guys' house. It's a beautiful house, but James, there's no furniture. We're always we're standing around, just like eating. And I'm thinking, are you kidding me? In my Roach Motel, I got a chair, okay, and a table. So I sent home every dollar I could. I slept in my car. I learned to make the best tomato soup out of ketchup packs. Buddy, I survived. And then it got about a year and a half, James. I thought, wait a second. I'm missing my family. I am starving, and I can go back home and work TVs and make 10 times the money I'm making now. I'm going home. And I was very thankful that, if you can remember, James, at that time, Dusty Crockett bought Florida, the second Kansas City. And he said, I'm sending all of the guys from here to Florida. The Mulkeys, Italian Stallion, Denny Brown. And I remember I told referee Ron West, I am not going to Florida. So it was like a TV movie. Everybody went to Charlotte, hung a right, went to Florida. George South went straight to Charlotte. And I started doing TVs. Next thing I know, 2 weeks later, I'm doing 3 TVs a week for Jim Crockett, a couple spot shows, and I'm sleeping in my own bed. So